The first tool that we're going to be looking at is provided by a company called Skore. Now, Skore tend to focus more around process mapping projects rather than end-to-end enterprise solution. So we're going to create our first process to do with HR, and that is to recruit a new member of staff. So I'm just going to go up here. It's all fairly intuitive. It doesn't take very long at all to get yourself up and running. So here I'm going to call this recruit a new staff member, and this will form part of the process title. Now, within the setup of this machine, we've also got some branding associated with the process, but it's very, very simple. So if I start here with looking at the process itself, and we start by looking at this view mode, so I can't make any changes to the process. So I'm going to go into edit, and very, very simple palette of shapes. So we have the what box, which is effectively activities, so these are the tasks and the things that you do, and we have a Y box, which are going to be the outputs of those tasks. We can also add notes, or if you want to make your process a little bit more attractive, you can start adding things like images to that as well. So with any process, we can always add a Y to start with. So I'm going to start my process with a vacant position. And a very neat, tidy tool here, or a shortcut, is we can actually create the next box in the sequence. So we can't have two what boxes together or two Y boxes together. And by having just pressing the spacebar, I can immediately link onto my next activity. So the first activity then is going to be to obtain authorization to recruit. And you'll have to excuse my spelling and the speed of my typing here. And it's given me a Y box, so I've got a so that, and the output of that is going to be our approved job advert. And again, just double click in each of these boxes. And I can go on to the next stage of the process. I can then look to select my candidate, which gives me an informal job offer, before I can then make my formal offer, which will give me then a new employee. Now this is at a high level a very, very simple, straightforward process. You can also see underneath these what boxes is who does it. So if I just click on the what box again, underneath who does it, I can see here it wants a job role. So here I'm going to have my line manager, and then the recruitment process moves then into the recruitment team. So we're going to have our recruitment manager, and again ultimately we'll have our recruitment manager making the formal offer. Now you'll notice that as soon as I start building out the process, any job roles I've used in this process are available to me in the drop down list, which is quite a cool feature. So there's a simple straight line process all the way through, but actually we want to go into a bit more detail. We want to break it down. To obtain authorization to recruit, so there's a little drop down button at the top here, which when I double click it takes me into a lower level map, which I can start adding flesh to it. Now my inputs and my outputs are all available to me, so I can just click on my input and I'll have my output at the far right hand side and just start dragging the process in. So here's my first what box, which is going to be obtain approval to recruit. From the management team. Now Skore talk about capturing process at the speed of conversation, and it is actually really quick to get a map together. Certainly if you're doing this over the phone or working remotely, we can see a real speed of what to do. You have to forgive my typing here. So next I'm going to have my next what box, so then I'm going to prepare my job advert. And then I'll have a job description. And then my final stage is to obtain approval. Now you do have to double click into the boxes to actually edit the text. You can't just simply select them. Now within Skore there is no concept of decision points. We've only got these what boxes and why boxes, so no branching. We can have multiple connections coming out of shapes, but there's no concept of the decision diamond. So if I look here at the functional manager, and the next step is we're going to delegate that down to a functional assistant. Now my browser here is doing a spell check for me. It just picks your default language, whatever you're picking, and then obtain approval. Again, I'm going to say as my functional manager, and just picking neatly from the drop down. Now that's great, but if I wanted to add some documents to this, I can actually do it really easily by clicking on the little paperclip icon, and I've got my documents held on a server somewhere else. So here, if I look at my authority to recruit, I'm just going to pick a URL and I'm just going to paste my URL from where it lives. And here's my authority to recruit form. Very, very simple. You'll also see up in the top we've got this breadcrumb trail which tells you exactly where you are in the process hierarchy. Let's just come back up to the top level. This is saving as we go, so I don't even need to remember to hit the save button at any point. But it's building up a database of shapes. So if I take a look at some of the other functions across the top here, and if I look at the roles, I can see actually how many job roles we've got and the actual names of them. So I've got a functional assistant, functional manager, a line manager. So I've got potentially a mismatch of job roles in here, so I can tidy that up, and a recruitment manager. We can also see across the bottom is who hands off. So in this case we've got a line manager that hands off to the recruitment manager at this top level, and if I come down a level, so again if I go into my what box and I look at my reports or look at the roles, again I can see my line manager goes to the recruitment manager, and that in turn goes to the recruitment manager. Like any tool, there's always more that you can do with it. I'm showing you just the standard tools which are available in the starter side of the system. But you'll notice across the top we do have some analytics functions which tells me how many what boxes and why boxes, diagrams, and deepest levels of view. I can also look at some reports, and this is quite useful again for seeing things like attachments, where they exist, where the URL is, the ID of the shape, and what type of attachment. Along the way, we can also have comments on the process. Now, these are once you're in a wider workspace, if you want to provide feedback on the process as another editor, you can do that. So broadly speaking, there are other functions as well to do with analysis. So if we look at the quantify side of the tool, this is one of the more premium features, and I'll just show you one of the quantify reports that we can see in the system. So there's our process, and it gives us some great visuals about how long the process takes to do, how much it costs, and the activities, the most expensive activities, and breaking down into lower processes and lower activities too. We can also look at the cost per hour to get the overall cost in. So that's a very, very high level view of what Skore is, and there's always more information available on their website.